The girl in the dust. The sun was hot above the alien market. The ground was dry and cracked. People moved from stall to stall, talking, shouting, buying things. They wore bright robes, metal belts, breathing masks. They were busy. No one looked down. No. One saw the little girl sitting behind a crate. She was small, just a child. Her skin was pale blue. Her clothes were torn and too big. Her arms were thin like sticks, and her big black eyes watched everything without blinking. She didn't speak. She didn't move much. She just sat there in the dust, her hands wrapped around her belly. She was hungry. The fruit vendor threw away a bruised red ball. It rolled near her. She reached for it fast like a frightened animal. A guard saw her and shouted, "Get out of here, stray!" She ran back behind the crates and sat down again, shaking. The bruised fruit lay out of reach. No one cared. No one asked where her parents were. Everyone in the market just wanted to make credits and go home. To them, she was nothing. But someone was watching her. An old man. A human. His name was Garen. He had gray hair, a beard, and walked with a cane. He wore a simple, brown coat and boots with cracked soles. A small metal box on his back hummed quietly. It was his breathing unit. He wasn't rich, he wasn't strong, but he noticed things others didn't. He stood near the market gate, holding a small bag of bread and dried meat. Then he saw her. The girl, sitting still, like a ghost. He watched her for a minute. She didn't blink. She didn't beg. She just sat there in the dust. He walked over slowly. His boots crunched on the dry ground. She didn't run. She only looked up at him. Quiet. Scared. Ready to flee. Garen didn't speak. He just sat down on the ground, slowly, groaning as his knees bent. He pulled out a piece of bread from his bag and placed it between them. Then he leaned back, sighed, and waited. The girl stared at the bread. Her fingers twitched, but she didn't move. "Eat," Garen said finally, in a soft voice. Her ears twitched. Still, she didn't reach. He pushed the bread a little closer to her. "I saw you watching the trash fruit. This is better." She looked at him, right into his eyes, then she crawled forward slow like a wounded animal. She grabbed the bread, sniffed it, then took a bite. She chewed fast, then another bite, and another. In seconds, the bread was gone. Garen didn't say anything more. He opened his bag again and handed her a small metal bottle. Water. She grabbed it quickly but didn't drink right away. She looked at him again, like she was waiting for him to take it back. He nodded. She drank. Slow at first, then faster. When the bottle was empty, she gave it back to him, still silent, still afraid. But now, her eyes were different, not full of panic, just confusion. Why was he helping her? Garen stood up with a groan, brushing dust off his coat. "All right then," he said. "I'll be going." He turned and started to walk away. He didn't look back, but he heard soft footsteps behind him, light. Careful. He smiled to himself. "She's following," he whispered. He didn't stop, didn't turn, but inside something warm sparked. A long, quiet feeling he hadn't felt in years. She followed him in silence. Garen didn't look back, not once. But he knew she was there. He could feel the quiet presence behind him. Soft steps, barely touching the dirt path. The little alien girl was following him, not because he asked, not because he told her to. She just didn't want to be left alone anymore. The sun had dropped low in the sky. The colors changed, from burning gold to soft orange, then deep purple. The marketplace faded behind them. Garen's small farm was a long walk away, out near the edge of the colony wall, where no one visited, where no one cared. He walked with his cane tapping the ground. Behind him, she walked without sound. At one point, he stopped at a dry stream bed, bent down to check his old water trap. Nothing inside, He sighed. Then, turned his head slightly, not all the way. "You still there?" he asked. No reply. But he heard a small breath. She was there. Still watching. Still waiting. They reached the edge of his land as night fell. The fence was low and crooked. The house was half buried in dust. One solar lamp flickered above the door. Garen unlocked the gate, walked through, left it open just in case. He stepped inside his little home. It smelled of old wood, oil, and quiet years. He set down his bag, hung his coat, lit the heater, sat down, then waited. 5 seconds passed. 10. Then, creak. The door opened just a little. Small feet stepped in. She stood in the doorway, still silent, still afraid. Garen didn't say a word. He reached over to the table and slid a small bowl of soup toward the edge, then looked away, like it wasn't even for her. But he heard her move, slowly, closer. The bowl was lifted. He smiled. She sat near the wall, legs crossed, holding the bowl with both hands. She ate quietly. No slurping. No sound, like she had been taught to be invisible. Garen pretended to read from a datapad, but he wasn't reading. He was watching her from the corner of his eye. When the bowl was empty, she put it down gently, then curled up on the floor near the heater. Not asking, not assuming, just there. Garen stood slowly, knees cracking. He grabbed an old folded blanket, walked over, laid it gently over her. She didn't move, but her shoulders relaxed, just a little. The next morning, she was already awake when he opened his eyes. Sitting by the door, watching him, like a wild animal that hadn't decided if it could stay yet. He made breakfast, didn't ask if she wanted any, just made 2 plates. Put one on the table across from him. Waited. After a minute, she came, ate quietly again. Still no words. But she didn't flinch this time when he lifted his cup. Progress. After breakfast, Garen walked outside to his old tool shed. The solar pump was broken. Again. He knelt beside it and opened the panel. Old wires, rusty coils. He sighed. Then, tiny fingers touched the edge. He turned. She stood beside him, still silent, but curious now. Watching. Learning. "Know anything about machines?" Garen asked with a half smile. She blinked once, then slowly nodded. Not big, just enough. He handed her a small tool. She took it like it was a gift, and together they worked. No words, just slow understanding. Shared space. That night she didn't sleep near the wall. She slept near the small cot Garen used, still on the floor. But closer. Not a shadow anymore. He watched her from his bed, covered in the same blanket. Tiny breaths. Soft, glowing eyes finally closed in peace, and he thought, she still hasn't said a word. But somehow she's already spoken louder than most. She was afraid to speak. It had been 5 days. 5 days since the little alien girl walked into Garen's old, creaky house. She still hadn't spoken. Not one word. Not even a whisper. But her silence said everything. It was in her wide eyes when the kettle hissed too loud, in the way she froze when a door slammed shut, in the way she flinched when Garen coughed too suddenly. She was always watching, ready to run, ready to hide. Like she was living in a memory that still hurt. Garen never asked her to speak. He didn't push. He just kept living. Chopping wood, fixing things, making meals, leaving an extra plate every time. She always ate quietly, cleaned her dish afterward, folded her blanket each morning perfectly square, and still she said nothing. One evening, while repairing the fence, Garen noticed something strange. His old metal bird, part of a forgotten wind chime, was missing from the porch. He didn't think much of it, until he found it again the next day, polished, fixed, and hanging neatly back in place. The small alien girl sat nearby, drawing simple shapes in the dirt with a stick. She didn't look at him, but he smiled anyway. "You fixed the bird," he said. She kept drawing, didn't nod, didn't react. But he saw her ears twitch. She had heard. That night, Garen sat at the small kitchen table, an old datapad in his lap. Across from him, she sat with her knees up to her chest, holding a warm mug between both hands. He looked up. "I don't know your name," he said gently. She stared at the steam rising from her mug, then pointed to her chest with one finger. Paused. Pressed her finger there again and tapped once. "Luma," Garen guessed. She blinked slowly. Didn't nod, but didn't correct him. He took it as a yes. "Luma," he repeated, smiling. "That's a good name." She looked down again. But for the first time he thought he saw the edge of a smile. Just the corner of her mouth lifting. Later that night, a loud sound echoed from the back of the house. A shelf had fallen in the storage room. Garen rushed to check it, found some cans on the floor, but they were fine. When he came back to the living room, Luma was gone. "Luma?" No answer. He checked the kitchen, the hallway, the porch, then heard it, a soft shuffle under the table. He bent down. There she was, curled into a ball, eyes wide, breathing fast, hands shaking. He knelt slowly, voice soft. "Hey now. It's okay. Nothing's wrong." She didn't move, didn't blink, like she wasn't even there anymore. He didn't touch her, didn't drag her out. He just sat on the floor, beside the table, and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Finally, a soft whisper. So small he almost didn't hear it. "Sorry." Garen turned his head, heart skipping. She was peeking out from behind her arms, one glowing eye barely visible. He smiled gently. "You don't need to be sorry." Another long pause. Then, "I thought..." It was starting again. His chest tightened. He understood now. The fear. The silence. It wasn't just sadness, it was memory. Pain that hadn't healed. He nodded. "Not here. Not ever again." Luma crawled out slowly, her tiny hands still shaking. She sat beside him. Didn't speak again. But she leaned against his shoulder. Just a little. And for the first time, she chose closeness. She chose trust. Not because she had to, but because something inside her believed. She was safe. They came looking for her. It started with the hum of engines, not Garen's tools, not the old farm machines. This sound was wrong, too smooth, too sharp. It came from the sky. A ship. Garen stood in the garden, hands full of soil. He looked up. Small black ship circled low, no colors, no insignia, just government gray. He felt a chill crawl through his spine. Inside the house, Luma froze where she was sketching parts for Garen's broken water pump. Her ears twitched, her fingers gripped the stylus tighter. Then she ran, not to the window, not to the door, but straight under the bed, silent as a shadow. The ship landed near the edge of the property. Dust blew across the field. 2 men stepped out, clean boots, cold, faces, eyes like scanners. One wore a digital badge that read, "Orphanage Retrieval Officer." Garen wiped his hands on a cloth and met them halfway, leaning slightly on his cane. "You're far from the city," he said dryly. The lead officer didn't smile, received a report. "Unregistered alien miner spotted here." Garen crossed his arms. "I don't know anything about that." "May we search your home?" Garen didn't move. "Got a warrant?" The officer frowned. "This is government property. The child belongs to us." Something in Garen snapped. "She's not a thing. And she's not yours." The second officer stepped forward. "If you're hiding her, that's a federal offense." Garen turned slowly, walked toward the house, and spoke, without turning back. "Then I guess you'd better get a real offense ready, 'cause she's not leaving with you." The officers followed. Inside, Garen blocked the hallway. You can wait right here. Sir, move aside. She's not some tool you left on a shelf. She's a child. She was starving when I found her. From under the bed, Luma held her. Breath, her body shook, but her heart beat strong. This was different. This time, someone was protecting her. One of the officers activated a scanner. It beeped. Lifeform signature. Non-human. Small. Room 3 meters ahead. He reached for his weapon. Garen stepped in front of him. Slow. Solid. Cane in one hand. Old rifle in the other. Not fancy, but real. Heavy. And ready. You take one step forward, Garen said, voice like cold steel. And you'll lose that leg. The room went quiet. Even the scanner fell silent. Then a new sound filled the air. Footsteps. Soft, bare. Luma stepped into the hall. Tiny. Shaking. But standing tall. She looked at the officers, then at Garen, and did something she hadn't done in public. Before, she grabbed his hand. The lead officer stared. This isn't your child. Garen squeezed her hand gently. Yes, she is. The officer opened his mouth, then paused. Because something glowed on Garen's wrist, a data band. He raised it slowly, clicked a button. A soft light blinked. Adoption petition filed. Human Colony Code 11F. The officer cursed under his breath. You filed for guardianship? 2 days ago, Garen said. That's temporary protection at best. Garen smiled. Good. Then you have time to think about how bad it'll look when the press finds out you tried to drag a bonded child away in front of a crowd. Silence again. A long one. Then, the officers turned, walked out. Said nothing more. Garen closed the door, locked it, dropped the rifle, then knelt beside Luma. She looked up at him, eyes wide, breath trembling. Then she whispered, I was so scared. He placed a hand on her head gently. Me too. But I'm not letting them take you. And for the first time since she had arrived, Luma hugged him, tight, with her whole body, with her whole heart. The girl who could fix machines. The days after the visit were quiet, but different. Something had changed. Luma was no longer just a shadow in Garen's house. She wasn't hiding. She was helping. It began with the solar lamp. Garen was outside fixing the chicken gate when the porch light flickered. He sighed. That thing's dying again. By the time he walked over, Luma had already climbed the stool, wires in one hand, micro spanner in the other. She looked down at him with her usual quiet eyes. I can fix it. He blinked. You sure? She gave the smallest nod. 5 minutes later, click. The lamp glowed steady and bright. Garen stared at it, then stared at her. You did that? Luma looked away shyly. I just knew what was wrong. The next day she fixed the water filter. The day after that, the old comm station. Garen watched her as she worked, calm, focused, hands moving like they were born to touch machines, like they spoke to her, like she understood them without words. You've got gift blood, Garen said one evening. Luma looked up from the dismantled plow engine. What's that? It's what we call people who got a natural talent. You never studied, but your hands know more than mine ever did. She smiled, and for the first time, truly laughed. It was small, soft, but real. That night at dinner, she sat taller, still quiet, still gentle, but her eyes were brighter. Her shoulders weren't pulled so tight anymore. She even asked, Can I build something new tomorrow? Garen grinned. You can build a whole workshop if you want. By the end of the week, the farm ran smoother than it had in years. Garen's old drone actually flew again. Thanks to Luma, she gave it a name, Pebble. It followed her everywhere. Sometimes Garen would just stand on the porch, hands on his cane, watching her, wires in her pockets, grease on her nose, hair tied back with scrap cloth. She was no longer the girl who ate in silence, no longer the girl who hid under tables. She was Luma, the girl who fixed everything except maybe her own past. But Garen knew. She was healing, bit by bit. With every circuit, every smile, every morning she woke up and didn't check the door in fear. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Garen sat beside her on the workbench. She was soldering a light sensor. He watched quietly. Then asked, "Luma, how do you know all this?" She paused, stared at the parts in her hands. "I used to hide in the junkyard outside the orphan camp," she said softly. "I would find broken toys, drones, trash. I didn't know what they were, but I learned. I had to keep my hands busy, so I wouldn't feel how hungry I was." Garen didn't speak, just put a hand gently on her back. She finished the sensor and handed it to him. "It will make the heater turn on before it gets too cold," she said. He looked at it, then at her, and smiled. "You don't just fix machines, kid. You fix everything." She blushed, looked down, then whispered, "You fixed me first." They tried to take her again. The message came at dawn, a blinking. Red light on Garen's old comm screen. Mandatory hearing. Child possession case reopened. Location, District Hall, 12 p.m. Garen stared at it for a long time. He had known they'd try again. People like them always did. They didn't like losing to an old man, and they sure didn't like losing to a little alien girl with dirt on her face and grease on her fingers. Luma stood in the doorway holding a wrench. She saw the message. Said nothing. But Garen noticed how her fingers trembled. "They want me back," she whispered. He nodded once. "They'll have to fight me for you." She looked up at him, and for the first time since he met her, her eyes were not afraid. Just sad. "Will they listen?" she asked. "I don't know," Garen said, "but we'll make them hear." The district hall. The room was cold and clean. Metal, walls, tall seats, bored officials. Luma sat beside Garen at the front. She wore a small brown jacket 2 sizes too big and held Pebble the drone in her lap. Across from them, the orphanage director sat with 2 sharp-looking lawyers. He wore a perfect smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "She was never adopted through formal channels," the director began. "She is alien, undocumented, and mentally unstable." Luma's hands clenched around her drone. Garen leaned forward. "She wasn't unstable. She was starving. You left her to rot in a junkyard." A few heads turned. The judge raised one eyebrow. "Mr. Garen, do you have proof of guardianship?" Garen held up his wristband. "It's all filed. Under Human Law Section 11F, I gave her food safety a home, and I filed the petition the day I learned her name." The director scoffed. "Intentions don't matter. Legally, she belongs to the state. You're harboring property." Garen stood up, voice louder now. "She's not property. She's a person, a child, a genius who rebuilt my whole farm with nothing but broken parts and bruised hands." Gasps rippled through the audience as Garen pulled out a small hollow pad and pressed a button. The screen behind them lit up, a security feed of Luma fixing the water system. Her building a solar tracker from junk. Her laughing with the old drone flying circles above her head. "Look at her," Garen said. "You want to take her back to the same place that broke her?" The judge turned to Luma. "Child, do you wish to speak?" She froze, tightened her grip on the drone. Then she stood small, thin but unshaking. "My name is Luma," she said clearly. "I'm not broken anymore." Everyone was silent. "I fixed machines because they didn't hit me. I followed Garen because he fed me. I stayed because..." He listened. She turned to look up at him. "And now, I want to stay because he's my family." The judge leaned forward. After a long pause, they spoke. "Under human colonial law, if a child can declare their chosen guardian in a case of past neglect, that bond overrides all prior claims." The director stood up fast. "This is absurd." The judge held up a hand. Motion denied. The child remains with Garen. Case closed. The hall filled with murmurs. Reporters whispered. Cameras flashed. Garen exhaled deeply and looked down at the girl beside him. She was crying quietly, but she was smiling too. He knelt down, wiped her tear with his thumb. "You did it, kid." She hugged him in front of everyone, tight, brave, not afraid anymore. She called him father. The sky above the farm was soft blue, the wind was gentle, and Luma was laughing. She raced across the garden, her bare feet kicking up dust as her drone pebble hovered just ahead. She wore coveralls now, cut down to her size, and a visor Garen had made from old welding glass. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was building. She was running. She was living. Garen sat on the porch, sipping lukewarm tea and watching her with quiet eyes. She'd been with him for 3 months now, since the court declared her free to choose. And she had chosen him. He still wasn't used to the sound of her laughter, but every time he heard it, it settled something deep in his bones, something that had been empty for years. The drone zipped in a loop and landed in her hands. She looked back at Garen, grinning. "I changed the wiring. Now Pebble can fly sideways." He chuckled. "Well, you'd better teach him how to land without bouncing off the fence." She stuck her tongue out. Garen smiled. Later that evening, they sat side by side in the small kitchen. She stirred soup, while Garen oiled his cane. A calm silence hung between them, the kind that doesn't ask for noise, the kind that means home. When they finished eating, Garen tucked her into her cot, the one he built beside his own bed. The walls were decorated now, full of her drawings, old circuit chips, even a glowing crystal she found near the creek. He pulled the blanket up to her chin. "You warm enough?" She nodded. Her eyes were already heavy with sleep, but before he could stand and leave, she reached out, touched his wrist, and whispered, "Good night, Father." The words stopped him, like time froze for just a second. He turned. She was smiling, eyes half closed. He tried to speak, but his throat was tight. He sat down slowly beside her bed. She blinked up at him. "You all right?" she asked softly. Garen nodded, but a tear rolled down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away. "Yeah, kid, I just haven't heard that word in a long time." She looked at him. Truly looked. Not like a scared orphan, not like a machine fixer, not even like a child, but like someone who had found her place, her person. "I didn't know if I could say it before," she whispered. "You can say it any time you want," he said, voice low and steady. "And I'll be here every time you do." She reached out her arms. He leaned in, and they hugged. Slow, strong, safe. The kind of hug that makes all the broken things feel like they finally make sense. Outside, the stars blinked quietly. Above, a quiet farm, where an old man with tired hands and a little alien girl with a wild mind had built something no law or system ever gave them.